And I've prepared a presentation assuming that there's been quite a lot of people involved who know absolutely nothing about electric cars, but I'm guessing from what's been said, the majority of this audience probably know as much as I do. But anyway, let's get going. I'll rattle through it and see where it takes us. So if I could share the screen, and hold on a minute, and we'll get going.
Looks good.
Can everybody see that?
That's good, yeah.
Yep, good. Okay, I'll just get a pointer going.
Yeah, looks great.
Hold on a minute, I've lost my pointer. Laser pointer, here we go. Right, we can all see that. Right, well, as I say, a simple guide to EV ownership, addressing the question that this evening was for, is your next car going to be electric? I've prepared this, putting it together, putting information from myself together with information I got from the Daviot group, the Zero Carbon Daviot group. They gave a very comprehensive presentation some months ago. I think it's available on Facebook or whatever, but I've, with their acknowledgement, I've used bits of it. Most of us have seen this thing, greenhouse gas emissions. This is since 17. There's various models of this one, all the CO2 sources. We can all do something about some bits of it by lifestyle choices, you know, what we eat, how we heat our houses, etc., etc. But the discussion this evening is about transport. Again, we can decide whether we want to travel overseas or not, but we're about electric cars. Now, since 2000, ironically, the amount of CO2 emissions from vehicles, from cars, I should say, newly registered cars, has actually declined by this nearly 30%. But since about 2015, it's slowly started to increase again, and that's been predominantly because of the adoption by many people of these large SUVs, which consume more fuel. I won't go into detail on this, but it's basically trying to say that if we can swing across to electric vehicles, it can help the overall CO2 emissions. Now, we're talking about electric cars, but what are the vehicle types? We've got at the top here, just the normal internal combustion engine, fuel powered. And then there's a couple of, or three different types of hybrid electric fuel vehicles, mid-hybrid, hybrid, and plug-in hybrid. All got different sizes of batteries in them, but also got an internal combustion engine in them. The plug-in hybrid, you can charge the battery from a plug-in socket. But down the right-hand side here, so let me just move some information on my screen here. See if I can reduce that. Yeah, there we go. You'll see that the CO2 emissions from these different types of vehicles, it improves as you go down the hybrids, not by a lot, and it's not until you get a battery electric vehicle that you make a significant dent in the CO2 emissions. And that asterisk that's there, that's because these figures were based on the average mix of the electric power in Britain. You know, is it coming from nuclear, is it coming from coal, etc., etc. Here in the northeast of Scotland, well, in Scotland generally, we're producing a vast majority of our electricity by renewables, and it's increasing all the time, a lot more to come. I will talk briefly later on about fuel cell hydrogen vehicles. Again, a reduction in CO2, but not as much as a pure electric vehicle. Now, I've been looking at electric vehicles for about 3 years, and this is just to give you an idea of the choice that's either available right now or is coming. Different kinds of vehicles up the left-hand side here, and the range. We'll talk about range later. But the most sort of regular cars you see around here, this one in the middle, the Renault Zoe and the Nissan Leaf, and then increasing at the moment a lot of Teslas all up in this northeast corner here. So there's plenty to choose from. It's just what floats your boat, really. Hydrogen. I certainly thought myself when I got into this that hydrogen might be the answer, until I did the investigation that, in fact, when you go for hydrogen, which is represented along the bottom here, that by the time you use electricity via electrolysis, or there is a chemical process that you can produce hydrogen with, but it's very energy demanding. You then have to compress it, liquefy it, transport it, and then regenerate electricity through a fuel cell. And all these sections don't have very good efficiencies. And the overall efficiency of a hydrogen-powered vehicle is only about 30% compared with the overall efficiency of a pure electric vehicle of around about 76%. Hydrogen is going to be produced in the very sunny climes of the world. I know they're going to be producing hydrogen and then shipping it to other parts of the world, but it's not the best way to go. Are electric vehicles too expensive? Some people are arguing, this is taken from an article in The Guardian, that it's already cheaper. What this is looking at here is what the price differences are in the UK, Germany, France, Netherlands and Norway, and it's all to do with taxation and the costs of different fuel types, but arguing that it's already cheaper. I'll have a bit more information later. In fact, this is a thing put together by the Daviot group where they looked at the Volkswagen Touran and the new Volkswagen ID3, it's the equivalent of the Golf, comparing a diesel and electric. And this is arguing that with cheaper fuel, much cheaper maintenance, zero road tax, slightly increased insurance, that the overall cost over 10 years, and I'll talk about lifetime of these vehicles, these electric vehicles in a minute, but the overall cost is about the same, and therefore the monthly cost is the same. I haven't gone into the maths of that, but I do know a number of people who recently have made the decision to go electric based on their investigation of costs. One or two people have challenged me and said, well, hold on a minute, making an electric car consumes more CO2. Yes, it does. But over the life of an electric car, it's actually burning, it's not burning hydrocarbons, so it doesn't produce the CO2 that a hydrocarbon vehicle or an internal combustion vehicle does. So this article here is claiming that the Nissan Leaf covers the manufacturing cost of CO2 in 2 or 3 years. But certainly my electric car, I'm not putting any fuel in it, which is quite interesting. Performance, in fact, I won't waste my time on that one, we'll go on. I'm just going to go on now and say why we bought an EV, what we've learned, and I'm going to make one recommendation at the end. What I'm hoping that you get out of this is that when you go into a car showroom, I'm going to give you some ideas as to what you might ask and to give you some tips as to what some of the things mean that a salesman might be trying to convey to you in relation to an EV. I'm not talking about hybrids here, by the way, just EVs. Why? My elder daughter, our elder daughter is an environmental consultant, so environment has been a topic in this house for many years, and the electric car has got no emissions. It's not just CO2, but all the rest of them as well. My wife wanted to change to an automatic, and she's absolutely thrilled with the electric car. Before we chose the one we did, we had 6 EV test drives, so we were convinced it was just finding the right car. The car we chose, we got big discounts, which surprised me, but the manufacturers are having to meet CO2 targets, and were giving big discounts at the end of last year. My wife's car was beginning to show lots of flashing lights. It was going to be an expensive repair. The new car was immediately available, and yeah, we knew about the low running costs. We bought an MG ZS. It's based on an internal combustion design. It's not a pure electric design. It's a bit less streamlined than the Teslas and other electric cars because we both have back problems and we needed a high seating position. It's got a large boot, which some of them don't have. My wife loves an opening sunroof. Despite being an MG, a Chinese manufacturer, the design is done in Europe. In fact, all the electrics are a Bosch design. It's got lots of bells and whistles. It's very up to date. Comes with a 7-year warranty, and that includes the battery. The dealer in Peterhead was not at all pushy and answered all our questions. They were very, very helpful, in fact, going back to the manufacturer on a few occasions. I listened in to lots of MG forum chat rooms, lots of positive feedback. The motoring press were not so positive, but I think they're all looking at Mercedes and more prestige cars. On the negative side, it didn't meet our specification of a range of 200 miles. It's 155, but there we go. Oh, what's happened? There we go. I just thought I'd put this up as a comparison. The Nissan Qashqai is one of the most popular family cars in Britain. The Tecna is the most sophisticated. This is the only technical information I'm going to present. The power of the Nissan is 110 horsepower, 81 kilowatt. But if you look there, the MG, it's 143 horsepower, so a lot more powerful. And as a consequence, the difference in performance of a diesel engine on the left, its torque was 260 Newton meters at 2,000 revs. The electric car, the torque on an electric car and electric motor is constant. In this case, 352. And what that means is that it can pull away very fast. And the likes of a Tesla, the acceleration is quite startling. It's slightly heavier because of the batteries. The boot was slightly larger. And because the electric car is less complex, and more about that later, the warranty is much greater, it's 7 years. Now, yeah, I might just go back one. What I'm going to talk about now is this bit here, the electrical connection, the connection between the power source, the grid, and your car. This is the area where you might get some information to ask when you go into a showroom. So this is the connector. Now this is, on the left, you've got a type 2 connector, and this is how alternating current connection. So this is the power type you've got in your home, is connected into the vehicle, and it plugs into this upper side of this socket here. And the AC, the alternating power, is transmitted through these pins here, these 5 pins here. The 2 top pins are control. I'll come to that in a minute. On the right-hand side, you've got the connector. It's called a CCS connector, and it is similar shape at the top, but at the bottom it's got 2 connectors for the direct current connection to charge the battery. So you can plug either a type 2 connector or this CCS connector into the socket in the car to charge it. So that's the European. Some cars don't have it, but the European standard now, I believe, is this setup. So it doesn't matter where you go in Europe, you should be able to charge your car. So that's the connection. And I've drawn up this sketch here. This line in the middle represents the division between, on the right, the car, and on the left, the supply. This upper part here is that type 2 connector, and this lower part, the red part, is the combined, the CCS connector, where you're connecting the two. There's some control signals go through this connector as well. Down here we have the high voltage battery in the car, the battery which drives the car. It's of course a battery, so it's direct current. In my car, it's a 43 kilowatt hour battery. And when it's fully charged, it sits at 450 volts. Now, the key thing here is that the battery is managed by the battery management system. It's the battery management system which controls what's going to go into this battery. And it doesn't matter what you connect to the car, here at the connector, this battery management system is in charge. Now, if you connect to an alternating current supply, that's no good for the battery. So inside the car, there's an AC to DC charger. In my car, it's a 7 kilowatt one. So if I connect to an AC supply, I can charge at the rate of 7 kilowatts an hour into that battery, managed by the battery management system. Now, if you, we'll talk about charge points in a minute, but there are charge points available from 3 kilowatts up to 22 kilowatts. You'll notice here I've put in 1.4 kilowatt. If you're using solar panels, no electric car will start to charge from solar panels until the panels deliver 1.4 kilowatts. But that's a nuance with solar panels. So that's your AC charging. But as I say, the rate of charge will be determined by the equipment in the car to convert that alternating current to DC current for the battery. If you connect up through a CCS connector, however, you're connecting up at this lower part of the connector to a DC supply, and they're available from a 50 kilowatt up to 350 kilowatt. I'm hearing recently they're going to go even bigger. And the more power you can get into the battery, the faster you'll charge. My car will charge at the peak charge rate is 73 kilowatts. So I can connect up to anything up to 100. The battery management system will limit it to 73. So that's how we connect up. You've got a choice of connecting up either to an AC supply or a DC supply. Now let's go and talk about the battery itself. Now this is my crude attempt at an S-curve, and on the left side, left axis, we've got the percentage of charge in the battery, and along the bottom we've got time. And I'd like to start here in the bottom left-hand corner, and let's assume the battery is flat and we're going to charge it up. When we start to charge the battery from flat, it charges very slowly. The battery management system says, yeah, just take it easy. I'm waking up, I'm cold, I'm empty, I'm not quite sure what to do. And it'll slowly charge up to about 15 to 20% capacity. And then it'll say, I'm nice and warm, I'm ready to go. You can charge me fast. And you can charge quickly up this curve until you get to about 80%, maybe 85%. And then the battery will say, hold on a minute, I'm getting a bit full. I don't want my dessert until I've had a wee pause. And so it slows down the charge rate and to take you up to full charge. Now you'll see in car adverts quite often 30 minutes to get to 80% charge. And that's what they're talking about. They're talking about getting from this point up to that point in 30 minutes, the fast charge time. So let's consider we're doing a journey. We're setting off from home and we're up here, we're fully charged, and we set off and we start to go down this curve here, and we continue our journey, and the battery gets to about 20%. In my car, the alarm goes off at 20%. At 20%, it says, please charge. Because if you get much below this and get into this zone, please excuse the bump here. My graphic design is not too good. If you get down into this zone, the battery will take some time. It'll slowly charge before it gets to here. So what you want to do is to start charging, if you're on a long journey, at this point and get quickly back up to your 80% point. Because to get to 90 or 100%, you're going to be sat at the charger for maybe another half an hour, another hour to get up to here. So the expectation is you'll be on the charge point for a limited period, the shortest reasonable period, which is to go up and down this curve. So the next leg of your journey is only going to go between your 80% point and back down to your 20% point. So if I'm doing a journey, my first leg is about 120 miles, and my subsequent legs are about 90, maybe 100 miles. So, you know, when you go into that car showroom and they assure you it'll charge to 80% in 30 minutes or whatever, that's what it's all about. It doesn't mean you're going to be able to do the, in my case, 155 miles when it's fully charged. It means you're going to get down to about down to your 20% level. So I can only do about 120 miles. When I get to the 20%, I've got to recharge. So just some information there. This is the dashboard on my car. On the left-hand side here, we have the speedometer. This is the 12-volt battery status of charge. There are two batteries. There's the high-voltage battery, and there's a 12-volt battery, which does everything like the lighting, the windscreen wipers, all the normal stuff. It's charged from the high-voltage battery. This little information panel in the middle is just really saying that at this point here, it's saying I'm averaging 3.3 miles per kilowatt. And this goes up to about 4 if I'm on a sort of motorway kind of thing. This figure here is telling me that I've got 135 miles in the battery. The car has done nearly 2,000 miles. This little assemblage of numbers here, this is telling me I'm in park mode. This middle one is I'm in regenerative braking mode, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And I'm in normal drive, I'll talk about that. This dial on the right is the meter, which is telling me what I'm putting into the motor. So the more I accelerate, the more power I'm using, and the less distance I'll go overall. When I get into braking, and I'm into regenerative braking, the needle goes negative, and I'm charging the battery. And this is just, again, like a fuel meter for the high voltage battery. The little window on the right here is just showing that the car is virtually fully charged. It's sitting at just about 450 volts, and I've got 152 miles to go. So that's just the dashboard on my car, the sort of information you can have presented to you. Just going to talk about regenerative braking, because the salesman will say to you, oh, it's got regenerative braking. You know, when you put the brakes on or you take your foot off the accelerator, you're going to put power back into the battery. Don't get carried away with that. Yes, it does it, but not by a large amount. I've yet to see that miles to go up by more than 1 or 2 miles. On my car, there are 3 settings. I can set it at level 1, which is similar to taking your foot off a conventional internal combustion engine in 5th gear, so it slows you down slowly. Level 2, a bit faster, it's like being in 4th gear and taking your foot off the accelerator. And level 3 is quite positive. It's like braking on an approach to a roundabout. And it returns energy to the battery, but it's not going to earn you an awful lot. But what it does mean is you're not using the brakes in the conventional manner, and there's little maintenance required on the braking system on electric vehicles. Oh, what's happened? It's frozen. Oh. Right, charge points. There are 3 types of charger. the sort of thing you'd have at home, where you probably do about 80% of all your charging, and you probably typically do it overnight, is lower power. They call it a granny charger. I've put a picture in here. It's basically you plug it into a 13 amp socket, like an electric kettle. It consumes 3 kilowatts, and it'll take maybe 15 or 16 hours to charge my car. You'll also get a home charge point, which charges at 7 kilowatts. So that's just doing it about twice the pace of the 3 kilowatt one. The second category of charger is a destination charger. Now, this is where, this is a charger you might find at your workplace, a visitor destination, shops, restaurants, hotels. Tesla installed a lot of these at hotels and restaurants, and I'm beginning to see them all around the place. There's one just been installed at Newburgh Golf Club. I heard from somebody yesterday they're installing them at his workplace. I've seen them now at National Trust properties. And the expectation there is when you won't have a round of golf, you can connect up and charge your car whilst you're playing 3 hours of golf. I charged my car at the Forvey Visitor Centre the other week and came back with more miles in the tank than I went with. And then when we go on a journey, you're looking for a rapid charger. So you're talking, this is the big chargers, 50 to 350 kilowatts. Fast, very fast charging that you need on the motorway. This is what they look like. So this one on the left is the intelligent charger that connects into my solar panels, 7 kilowatts. One in the middle here, this has got a socket on each side and a panel here for reading a card. And this can charge at either 7 kilowatts or 22 kilowatts, depending on the connection within your car. And then this is a typical rapid charger, 50 kilowatts to 350. Different types of connectors here. Here's your CCS here in the middle, but other types for other cars. And that you can select, on some of these you can select whether you want to charge AC, or it should have been AC or DC there, not AC twice, sorry. I've dragged this out of, this is a part of the Renault Zoe online information, and I thought this was quite well presented. What this is saying is that the connector for a Zoe, you can connect up to a number of different capacity of AC charge points, and you can charge that car, from 3 kilowatts, 11 kilowatts, 22 kilowatts, 7 kilowatts. Now my car can only charge at 7 kilowatts or less. So this is giving you more flexibility if you can only find an alternating current charger. There are no high-speed DC chargers, but this car, like mine, can also charge at 50 kilowatts. And that's
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
It's brilliant, by the way. This is really fantastic. I'm learning so much. What happens? Can you actually connect it to something, one of these fast charge things, even though you can only charge at a limited rate? Will the battery management system cope with that? Yes.
It's the battery management system that decides the whole thing. For example, I can connect up to my home charger at 7 kilowatts, and if the battery is getting full, then the battery management system trims it back, and in fact it drops down to 0.3 of a kilowatt before it actually switches off.
So there's no chance of blowing the system then? That's what I was getting at.
No, exactly. It's a good question. I was participating in an MG owners forum, and somebody was saying they'd connected to a DC charger rated 100 kilowatt to see what rate the MG would charge at, and it charged at 73 kilowatts, although the handbook says 50, but he did actually charge at 73. I think he's still driving the car. I didn't ask him that question, actually. But yeah, thanks for the question. Quickly on to charging costs. The unit rates at home, I'm paying around about 15p. There are no electric vehicle charging tariffs overnight. Some of them are zero for charging between midnight and 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm a bit circumspect about them because they charge you more during the day for your other power. If you've got solar panels, or you might want to consider solar panels, they're much, much cheaper now, solar panels, than they were, with an intelligent home charging point. I'll show you later, but I charged the car for a month and it cost me nothing. Charge Place Scotland have installed thousands and thousands of chargers across Scotland, and many don't have no charge. But these are actually run by local councils, and councils are now beginning to charge. Dundee is now beginning to charge 19p a kilowatt hour. But rapid chargers, these are the ones you'll get on your motorways and other places. Even the normal price is something about 19 to 23p, but there is one supplier who's charging 69p per kilowatt hour. Now that's roughly equivalent to what you pay for diesel fuel. But these are on the motorway, and they are assuring you of a very, very high reliability and availability. So they're trying to recoup their money, because people are prepared to pay, knowing that they can go somewhere, get connected, get charged quickly, go for a coffee, visit the loo, get back to their car and get on their journey. So people are prepared to pay that kind of price. It's not price sensitive.
Can I just add a comment there, Ian?
Yeah.
Just to your Dundee charging, I don't know if you're aware of why Dundee was one of the first to charge, because their taxis are mainly electric. So if they weren't charging, then all the taxi drivers would have been getting all their business for free. So I think that's why they put the tariff on there.
Yeah, well, they're interesting, John. Yes, I've charged in Dundee, and it's halfway to Glasgow. Yes, the plazas, it's brilliant. You can go onto a charging plaza, and there are usually half a dozen taxis there as well. But there we go. But this is overhead from the Daviot group. I won't go into the bottom part because it just justifies the top part. But a petrol car normally costs you 15p. My brother argues that it's only 12, but that's by the by. Public charging around about 21p is equivalent. If you're getting about 3 miles per kilowatt hour, that's 7p a mile at public. Home charging, as I said, about 5p, and home charging at night time, about 1.5p. And as I say, if you've got your own solar panels, you can do that. So let me, what something's happening here? Where's my mouse gone? Oh, gone. There we go. This was a bit of information I gleaned from the Which magazine, the May version of the Which magazine. And you can see the question they pose themselves: how much could you save by going electric? And they go through all these charges. No need to go through all the ins and outs. But they do show in here plug-in hybrids. And the point I'm just wanting to make here regarding plug-in hybrids, if you don't plug in your plug-in hybrid, you're just wasting your money. It's going to cost you more to run that car because you're hauling around a battery, an engine, and everything else. And the number of plug-in hybrids I'm seeing in car parks that are not using the charge point that's available to them, I think people have missed the point here. But I think it's a very important point. If you've got a plug-in hybrid, you must plug it in or you're not going to get the benefit. Those are my solar panels. This is the Zappi I have. So it just shows you here that the solar panel bottom left is, when I took this screenshot, it was only producing 0.5 kilowatt. But I can feed it to the car. It does it automatically. Anything that the house isn't using, it gets exported to the grid. I get paid nothing for it. But if I can send it into the car, I get it for nothing. And this was a couple of months ago. You can see here, I charged the car over the month 213 kilowatt hours from my solar panels. Oh, there was one occasion I must have put it on a boost charge. That's at 7 kilowatts for an hour or so. My wife must have wanted to go shopping, I think. Charge points. People ask a lot, well, how do you find out where a charge point is? Well, there's quite a few apps. These are screenshots from my mobile phone. The left-hand one, the Charge Place Scotland have one. This is Zap Map. It's probably one of the better known ones. This is Aberdeen, and as you zoom in, more and more come available. And by the color coding, you can see whether it's a high-speed one or what its capacity is. I've then in the middle page here, I've selected the Ellen Park and Ride. And you can see here, it gives you a map, tells you where it is. And in fact, Zap Map can navigate you to it. It's run by Charge Place Scotland, and it tells you what kind of connectors are available. And, I mentioned CCS, there's only one available there. You can then go in further, and this is the third screen. And this tells you that on device 2, there are 2 charging terminals there, but device 2, which is number 51553, has got a CCS connection, so I could charge my car quickly there. It was available 2 minutes ago, and a user reported that they used it 2 weeks ago. This particular one, a Chadimo, I think that's what the Nissan Leaf was using. I believe they've gone across to the CCS type connector now. It was actually charging at that time. Then you can decide, I'm going to check in, I'm going to use this device. So there's a lot of information available to help you find a charge point. And if you get cars like the Kia e-Niro, a lot of this information is on the sat-nav system that's built into the car, and not only does it tell you charge the battery, it'll pop up on the screen and tell you where the nearest charge point is, and you can see from that whether or not it's in use, it's available, or it's broken down, or it's not available, or whatever. Maintenance costs. Gosh, I've been talking for a long time, I do apologize. No engine oil, no oil filter, none of all that lot. There's much fewer moving parts, and you've got the regenerative braking. Yeah, I'll come back to that in a minute. So maintenance costs are about half of your internal combustion engine type of vehicle. Range anxiety, yes, will I get there? You do have to set off on a journey with some sort of charging strategy. Where am I going to go to? Where could I go to? If it's not working or it's busy, could I go to another one? In the winter, the range isn't so good. If you've got the heating on, when you're charging, if it's cold, you've got to heat up the battery before it'll start to take the charge. If you've got the air conditioning on in the summertime, etc., etc. Everything you switch on, the radio, the windscreen wipers, the lights, take power from that battery and reduce your distance available to you. Battery deterioration, it's a lot of discussion, but research is still going into this. Long warranties help. We've got 7 years, but second life, what a lot of manufacturers are doing, Nissan are using their batteries once they take the cells out of a car, they get used in home storage points, etc., etc. And to plan your journeys, you use Zap Map or something equivalent. Now, electric vehicles are coming, like it or not. About a month ago, I was listening in to a national conference on everything EV, where there were fleet owners, charge point suppliers, energy companies, banks, investors, all participating. Centrica, Uber, Post Office, UPS, Waitrose, going over to fleet electric vehicles, using a lot in London and the southeast of England. Waitrose have designed their own vehicle. How they manage the power in the charging points is very, very interesting. It's getting very sophisticated. Charge point manufacturers are working flat out. They can't make them fast enough. There's a big focus now, as of April, on public charging, workplace charging, destination, flatted developments. I'm in discussion with various people about flatted developments to get charge points installation. And the grant focus has moved away from individuals to this kind of workplace. even the Caravan Club, there was a presentation from the Caravan Club at this conference that members are putting them under pressure, and they are starting to put in charge points at their campsites. It's not in any of their handbooks yet, but they're doing it at a few. And you'll start to wonder, well, how can the power management system cope with all of this? But there's a lot of being done on smart power management to manage how we spread the power. I'm nearly finished, folks. So they're not too expensive. They're not hopeless for long distances, and they don't take forever to charge up. They don't drive like an old milk float. They're absolutely incredible to drive. A friend of mine described them as a milk float, but without the milk bottles, but there we go. And there's no lack of choice now, and the choice is increasing all the time. And finally, I'm just going to say one thing: go for a test drive. Until you've been for a test drive, you won't know what it's all about. That's me finished, or is it the new beginning? I don't know. Is your next car going to be electric? At least consider it maybe for the family second car, the runaround. I know a few people are doing that, but I'm also hearing more and more people are surprising me, actually, are going across to electric cars. Thank you very much indeed. I hope I've not bored the socks off you. Thank you. Oh, I'll have to shut this down. Wait a minute.
Yeah, that was really good. Really enjoyed that.
Well, I'm sorry it was quick, and I realise I've taken a long time. Sorry.
It was brilliant. Really, really great. I think you must be an engineer or a teacher or something, or maybe both, because that was so clear. I learned so much. Right.
Well, I'm actually a chartered electrical engineer, but I worked in that for a while.
I thought that was.
I tried to keep it non-technical, because you want people to be able to go into a car showroom and ask the right questions and understand what people are saying to you. And the choice is yours.
I think the section around the 80% charge is really valuable. Good to understand that a bit better. That's really useful. And I think also your slide on the carbon footprint of a conventional car equivalent to an electric car, and see how they grow. And after 3 years, you get an equal, and then the car stays the same. So I think that's really good. That's well presented.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. That sounds great. Ursula, do you want to lead on, or are you in control again of your machine? You're still muted.
You're muted.
What about now?
That's better. That's working.
Hooray. Yeah, so thanks again, Ian. That was brilliant. Yes, I have questions myself, but first of all, open for questions to Ian, to everyone else. I can, as I said before, I can't see when you do this hand raising, so you'll have to wave, or John or someone else has to shout and tell me there's a yellow hand.
It doesn't seem to be anything up at the moment. Shall I lead it? How did you find the transition to your range limit? You said you get about 155, which realistically is still a bit less than that. Has that been an issue for you, or are you just finding that there's just a mindset and it's okay?
Yeah, I think it is a mindset, John. Yeah, we went into the showroom saying we have to be able to drive to Glasgow without stopping, 150 miles. I mentioned we both have bad backs, so in fact we normally stop in Dundee anyway for a stretch and a cup of coffee or something like that. But this car gave us a nice upright sitting position, ticked quite a lot of the boxes, so we said, right, we'll go for it. And it drove into this driveway on the 15th of January, and after that we never used the other car. We just stopped using it. And in fact, we're going to go down to one car. It's a long story, but anyway, I'm just about to sell the last internal combustion engine car that's lived in this household. We just started using it and absolutely loved it. The range, you just have to plan ahead. I'm going down to the Lake District in a couple of weeks' time. I know how I'll get to Glasgow. It's only 150 miles to my destination. So I'll charge up in Glasgow again and we'll see how we get on. But I've got a list, I haven't got it with me, but I've got a list of about 8 places I could stop or divert to. It's a bit like flying a helicopter. Don't get me wrong, I've never flown a helicopter, but you know, you have to have an alternative refueling point. It'll get better. Some of the suppliers of charge points are seriously, you know, they're installing not just one. In that example I showed you of Ellen, there's one high-speed charge point I could use. But these suppliers are installing 4. They're saying our uptime is going to be better than 90%. And so you can be assured that you drive up to that forecourt with 4 chargers, 3 of them will be working. And hopefully, you know, 1 of them will be free, if not free at that moment, because people, you know, the charging rate of batteries is going up and up and up. You know, they're now talking about cars charging in 10 minutes. Therefore, the chargers will come freer. Some of these chargers, you're limited to 45 minutes. If you stay on it any longer, it switches off. Yeah? And also some, and I've not come across one myself yet, charge you a penalty. So if you stay on for more than an hour, you'll get charged maybe 5 quid or 10 quid or something.
That etiquette is sort of really needs to be evolving, doesn't it? And I've not seen. I'm aware that they lock in. We drive a Leaf, so we're familiar with it. But the charger actually locks into your car when you put it in. Do you know once it gets on these systems that have the 45-minute timeout? Do you know if that then allows somebody else to come and take it out of the vehicle to put it into theirs?
I don't know. I would doubt it for safety reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just imagine it spitting out the dummy, you know, saying, I've had enough. But no, I can't imagine it doing that for safety reasons, but I don't know. But I'm just sharing it with you. People have asked me questions. Well, you know, what's stopping somebody sitting there for 3 hours? But certainly at motorway service stations, people are not hanging about. You know, there's not many people go in for a 2-hour lunch in a motorway service station. Yeah. If they do, I've yet to meet them.
Yeah, no, like you say, in transit, I think that's right. I think it's going to be the destination ones, the workplace or hospitals or some of those ones where the etiquette is going to be more critical. So,
well, I was in Inverurie a few weeks ago, and I was at the charge point there. I've been going around just trying them out and learning how to do it. And somebody came out, they'd obviously been at work, and they came out, got to work, parked their car, put it on charge, and they were coming out at coffee time, 11 o'clock, plugging it, and he just reversed it from the charge point into a space. It was charged. I know somebody who's just bought a Tesla, and he's charging it at work. He hasn't even got a charge point at home. He's no intention of charging it at home. He's going to charge it at work.
Very good.
Ian, can I ask a question? You mentioned the words range and range anxiety and so forth, and that's actually one of the reasons why I at the time did not go for an electric car, because my son has this sports activities that force me to drive him across the country to some remote beach at 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, and then they'll be busy there until Sunday evening, and then I need to quickly get back. And I heard a lot of stories from a lot of people that as soon as you leave the motorways and you're in rural Scotland, there only are a few chargers. They're sometimes not working. So I was wondering whether you could say anything, whether you know anything about how quickly you think the range for the more normal cars that are not at the top end of the market will increase, so that in cases like this, you don't have to panic that you won't get home. Because you can easily drive 200 or 250 or more miles with one charge.
Yeah, I think what you've got to remember, Ursula, is that if you want to go for a big range, Pete, you wanted to answer that?
No, I was just saying goodbye, Ian, because I haven't eaten yet, so I'm going to go to eat food now. That was brilliant. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay.
Bye.
Hi, Pete.
Yeah, what you've got to remember is you want a big range, you're going to have a big battery, and that gets heavy. And I've driven, well, one of the cars I did a test drive in had a big battery, and you could tell it was a heavy car. And if you're, you know, let's face it, 80% of our driving is relatively short distances. And to be hauling around a heavy battery is really a bit of a waste of time. So, you know, it is a bit of a compromise. But I think what you're looking for is the sort of thing I was trying to demonstrate on the Renault Zoe, is a flexible capacity to charge from different types of charge points. So on the Zoe, you could charge at 22 kilowatts AC. You're far more likely to see that working because there's no rectifiers, there's no equipment for that. That's just a small post with a three-phase connection. I'm getting technical now. A three-phase connection. You can charge 22 kilowatts. I mean, in half an hour, well, in an hour, that's going to give you 60 miles range. Half an hour, it's going to give you 30 miles range. That's pretty impressive. Whereas if I plugged into the same connector in my car with a 7 kilowatt charger in half an hour, I've only added 3 kilowatts, which is 9 miles. Yeah. So it's going to be a combination of flexibility of charging, you know, so you can charge from different kinds of charge points, and that battery range. And I think if you go much over about 53 kilowatt capacity battery, you'll start to feel the car's getting heavy, and it'll be more expensive. Somebody's asked a question here. Wait a minute. What is the cost of installing a charge point at home? Catherine, thanks for that. Some manufacturers, when you buy the car, will install a charge point for you. There were grants. I think there's a grant of about £350 available. Depends on the kind of charge point. If you just go for a bog standard charge point, non-intelligent, just it delivers 7 kilowatts, you're probably talking £500, £600, and you might get half of that as a grant. The one I've got, because it connects into the solar panels, it's called an intelligent charger. It was £1,300, and I got nearly £600 of grant towards that. But I know one of those grants has now been stopped, so I think you'll only get about £300 at the moment. Sorry, Ursula, you said you had a few questions.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
No, that was it. Catherine, yeah, nobody, Pete. Good. All right, Pete is saying I'm in. Good. Well, he's cleared off. So.
Yes, let's eat.
Good. Yeah.
I'm interested to hear more of the other experiences in the test and the Zoe. So I don't know if we can move on to that.
So, well, I was just putting my hand up. So regarding the charging thing, so I don't have a charge. We don't have a charge point installed yet here because of problems with a kind of electrics. So I've been using almost exclusively a granny charger. So it's actually less power than you said, Ian. I think it's 2.2 kilowatts. But actually, for what I use it for, it's fine. And so I almost don't need the charge point, because you know I commute 50 miles a day. So I get home, plug it in, and if and overnight, sort of 12 hours will give me about 50% ish. No, about 60%. So that throws me from that 20% to the 80% that you were saying. And so, that kind of suits me quite well. So, depending on what you're using it for, you might not even need a home charger.
Yeah, Fraser, I think that's very, very valid, actually. For the first 2 months, I think, before we got our charge point installed, we were just using what they call the granny charger, which is the one that usually comes with the car. But because I wanted to connect into solar panels, I had to get a smart charger, and I wanted to take advantage of that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you mention that, because we've, I might have to pick your brain a bit more after this, but because we've got solar panels, but so I might be interested in sort of, I'm still contracted into getting a charge point installed, but with the problems we've had, I might be able to sort of cancel that and think about another route, like doing something like you've done.
Yeah.
But one of the things I had, one of the when they sold me the car, you wouldn't believe this, but they didn't give me the charging cable. So I went off, and I didn't, and I'd already bought the granny charger because it had been recommended to me, because they're fairly cheap. You get them from Argos, and I thought, well, that sounds like a good bet before I get the home charger installed, because that was going to take a few weeks at least. So I went home quite kind of happily that, and I didn't actually realise that all the public charging points, you used your own cable. I hadn't actually looked into that, so I thought that, you know, they came with the cable. So it was only after a couple of weeks when I first went to use one that I realised, oh, I should have a cable. So I had that period of time where I was just using the granny charger, and it took them ages to get me a cable. But because I was using the granny charger, it was actually okay. But
Fraser, I know somebody else who bought a Renault Zoe recently, and they told me that it came with nothing. Whereas the MG came with a cable. I should explain, you need a cable if you're connecting to an AC, an alternating current charger. The high power, the DC ones, they have cables provided because they're really, really heavy duty cable. But we talk about granny charger. The granny charger is basically the smallest. It plugs into a 13 amp socket in your home.
Laura, aren't you also charging your car with your solar panels? It's just wondering what your experiences on that were.
Yeah, we have the Zappi charger, the same as Ian, so exactly the same concept. It basically uses excess solar energy, and it uses a number of CT clamps to understand the power that you've got getting used in your house via the power that's getting generated by the solar PV system, and then essentially any excess gets fed into the vehicle. And there is a minimum amount. It's part of the standard for charging electric vehicles, and you can't actually charge any less than 1.4 kilowatts. So, so you've got to be producing an excess of 1.4 before it will start charging. But at that point, it does charge. And then we also use, at times, if we had our car back in February, so there wasn't quite so much solar energy there. We got set on a timer, and it charges on the, we use an Octopus Energy electric vehicle tariff, which is 5 pence per kilowatt between 12:30 and 4:30. And it's quite sensible as well throughout the day. It's on 14.6 through the day as well, so it's quite a reasonable tariff. And then we just top up with that between 12:30 and 4:30 during the winter.
That was on the.
That sounds good.
Yeah, Octopus Go, it's called. You need a smart meter for it to work. They can provide that as well if you don't have one. But yeah, it's very, very reasonable.
That's an interesting one, because we've got a smart meter, but it doesn't. Of course, it works over the phone system, so they can't commission it here because we haven't got phone signal. So that's a bit.
Hopefully that'll be getting sorted soon with the new radio.
Yeah, that's right. I hope so. Yeah, excellent.
Sorry, can I ask what kind of car are you charging? What is it?
Tesla Model 3 long range.
Yep, good. Yep. Have you got a tow bracket fitted yet?
No.
No. The reason I'm raising the question, this is what the Caravan Club guy was saying at the conference, that they're getting questions from Tesla owners who want to tow a caravan with it. And apparently you can get a tow bracket fitted, but I've yet to speak to a Tesla owner who's actually towed anything with it. So
yeah, it's very expensive. I think it's about something like £1,000 or £1,500 for a tow bar for the Tesla, and it's got to be fitted at factory as well. So it's you'd have to, and I think, to be honest with you, it's not really for towing caravans. It's more for bike racks and the likes.
Okay.
well,
Put you in touch with Reen and Angie, who live up at Hatton. They've got the Tesla and the Tesla Wall for charging theirs, and I would think they've done it. I know they've got a tow bar. I've seen it, but they do a lot of boat towing, so you could get some experience from them, I would think. So might be interesting to hear. What sort of range do you get out of the Tesla then? You say it's a long range. It's specifically the larger battery, is it?
Yeah, it's on paper it's 362 miles.
Okay.
Realistically, probably about 330, 340. You know, down to maybe 315 on a very cold winter's day.
Okay. Wow.
Well,
Yeah.
that would get me back from the beach on Sunday.
Yeah, we don't really have range anxiety at all. You know, that was one of the things that concerned us before making a switch, but hence the reason why we went for that, just to rule that side of things out.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Do you notice a difference in cold days? The battery does drop quite fast in a cold day.
Yeah.
I've noticed with the Zoe probably a bigger difference than that on cold days compared to warm days. I'm getting much better mileage now. It's summer compared to when I got the car in November. It makes quite a big difference. But also I was interested in that you're on that little diagram you had with all the different models of cars and their range. Where you had the Zoe was exactly the range that I get, which is way below what they say you can get. They say you can get over with a 40 kilowatt hour battery over 200 miles, but I think that's pretty much impossible, I think.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, that was the point I'm trying to make, is that when you go into showroom, they'll tell you that top figure, and that assumes you've got no lights on, no wipers, no heaters, no radio.
Yeah, no gradient on the road.
Yeah. Well, funny you should say that, because one of the MG owners lives in the forum, lives in Inverness, and he said he's come across electric vehicle owners, stuck on the A9 at the top of the hill. You come out of Inverness and you're faced with 5 miles of hill.
Yeah.
And people just look at the map and say, oh, well, it's only so far to so-and-so. They don't realise that they're faced with 5 miles of verticality, which
Oh, God.
munches through their battery.
Get down to Aberdeenshire to charge up. Oh, no, you won't.
No, you won't. Exactly right.
Yeah, okay. And that's an interesting one. Yeah, my son follows quite a lot of the updates on them, and he was quite excited when he saw that the Hyundai Ioniq 5, which is coming out next year, you can siphon fuel from your battery and charge up somebody else. So you can drive up to your mate and plug in between your car and their car to give them charge to get home, which is just like the good old days of siphoning out into your fuel tank.
I think it'll be quite interesting as well in the not too distant future as well. We'll be able to do vehicle to grid. That's a technology that's sort of not quite there yet, but it'll sort of negate the need to have like a Tesla Powerwall type thing in your home. You'll be able to power your house from the vehicle.
So effectively your vehicle becomes a storage battery.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, I'd heard in the future about, with the uptake of electric cars, is that the batteries in the cars is going to be a huge, reservoir of electricity for the country, for the grid, which is kind of a really interesting idea.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. Going back to that conference, there was a lot of discussion. There's big trials going on down in the south of England on using vehicles at home to store power from the grid. And it is working, but we're a bit too far north here. In the winter time, it might not do but I volunteered to do that, but you had to have a Nissan Leaf, I think it was. You had to have a Nissan Leaf, and then they decided not to do any trials in the north of England or Scotland, that they concentrated down, you know, in the south of England. But it is going ahead. They've had results, and it's positive. And there's a great potential there for, you know, like storing wind energy or whatever when we're not using the car. So there we go. Sorry, Anne was waving her hand a few minutes ago. Anne, did you have a question?
I was just wondering if you were stuck on the top of a hill and you didn't have a mate, what you would do. You know, do the RAC come out with a battery to charge you up, or are you just stuck?
Well, you just roll back down the hill to Inverness.
You reach out.
What they do, Anne, well, first of all, we took out car insurance specifically for an electric car. And that includes roadside recovery if you run out of juice. And I understand that now the service companies, the roadside service companies, are carrying a generator, and they'll plug you in, charge you up to get you to the nearest charge point.
Yeah, okay. We also, with ours, the deal that we got was that we had a roadside run out of power assistance. They come and do that, so that was covered in our cost. I guess
one of the MG owners was saying he made a miscalculation. He was driving in the south, round about Southampton. He eventually got to a motorway service point, and he and his wife the alarms were going off. It was, you know, it was below zero. They switched everything off. They even unplugged their phone, you know, but they made it to a charge point, you know. But it was a desperate situation. There we go.
That's
You're not
encouraging.
selling
Thanks
this
very
very
much.
well.
Anyway.
Have you had any issues with it, Fraser? You've probably got you're running fairly close to your capacity at times, I guess. Not an issue.
Well, one time I did forget to plug it in overnight when I needed to, and I realised in the morning. But I was lucky; I had enough to get into work, and I charged it at. I went shopping to Aldi, and there's a charge point opposite the Aldi, so I got enough from that to get home. But that was just sort of absent-mindedness, just forgetting to plug it in at home when I should have done. Other than that, no, it's been fine. Once I've got, you know, used to the range and how it changes depending on, you know, where I'm going and how I'm driving and the weather conditions. And because one other thing I found with the range kind of indicator on the Zoe, it's kind of not especially reliable. And as Ian says, you know, if you go up a hill, you suddenly lose sort of 10 miles of range because it's you get a bit back going down the hill, but I think after a little while you kind of know how far you can get, and it's fine.
I believe that meter is called a GOM, a guess-o-meter.
Exactly. Yeah, I think you're better off just, you know, using your own experience. But we've not done any sort of long trips on it, and it was never really, you know, we've got another car, like a bigger sort of family car, which is a diesel. So if we were going on a long distance, we would still use that. So we've not challenged it, shall we say?
Yeah.
Go on in.
Sorry, John.
I was going to move on to another one. How did you find it with researching the second hand? Are there many on the market, and have you found that it does what it says on the tin when you got the second hand vehicle?
Yeah, well, when I was looking, it initially came out from, I heard it on a radio program about someone, I can't remember what it was, but someone with a Renault Zoe was talking about it, and it sounded interesting. And when I looked, because I wasn't really, at that time I wasn't really thinking, but then, you know, the car I had was getting towards the end of its life, and, you know, the service costs, maintenance costs were getting too expensive to really justify keeping it. And initially I hadn't really thought electric, and because I thought it was coming around too soon. But then when I looked into it, I was really surprised actually when I looked, because I had no idea that the Renault Zoe had been manufactured since, I don't know when they started, but it was many years ago, you know, like best part of 10 years ago, I think. And there were actually quite a few on the market. So as soon as I looked at that and realized that you could get, you know, cars that would be reasonably priced because they'd be 2 or 3 years old, and that was it really. And I was kind of sold on the Zoe because I think even last year there weren't that many sort of cheaper small cars on the market, and because of the track, because they've been producing it for so long, and there was so much available, I was kind of I didn't actually look at any other cars apart from the Zoe, so it was just a question of picking the one I wanted. And you know, they initially started off with 20 kilowatt hour batteries, or 22 or something, and then I can't remember what it was, I think it was 2017 or something, they switched to the 41 kilowatt hours, and that was really my minimum, a bit like what Ian said, that was kind of my minimum requirement. So I was just looking for what I could get with a 41 kilowatt hour battery, and I actually ended up, it's the first car I ever had where I've got the color that I wanted, which is really strange. Normally I've just, which is quite surprising. So there must be a few available on the market.
Excellent. You could
so it was, how old was it? It was just under 2 years old when I bought it. So it was significant, you know, discount compared to getting a new car, and it only had, I can't even remember now, I think 5,000 miles on the clock. So you know, it's almost as good as new. So yeah, it was a good experience, and I was just surprised by how many were on the market. I wasn't expecting to be able to find hardly anything. You know, there's not a huge number, but if you're looking across Scotland, there's enough to, you know, find what you're looking for in your price range, really.
Can I ask a question? Is there, when you buy a second-hand car, is there any way to find out reliably how good the battery still is? Because I keep being warned by people who understand more about this than I do, not to do this because you allegedly can't do that, and yeah, things could go wrong very quickly and they're very expensive and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, Ian can probably answer that better than I can, but I know that the Zoes, they guarantee the battery for 8 years or 100,000 miles, whichever's the comes first. And because, you know, I was buying a car less than 2 years old, I wasn't really, that wasn't really a major concern. But yeah, I think if you're going older than that, it might be a concern. I don't know what you think, Ian.
No, I would agree with you, Fraser. I think, Ursula, you have to rely on some sort of warranty. As Fraser said, you know, the Renault comes with an 8 year and the MG's 7 years. And one or two people have said to me, well, you know, hold on a minute, your car's Chinese, you know, how well's it made and all the rest of it. And I had the pleasure of being in China some years ago, and we were quite surprised at the number of electric vehicles in China, and I'm going 4 or 5 years. Electric, I'm going to call them motorbikes, but they weren't motorbikes, they were silent killers. But you never heard them. But anyway, electric vehicles, there were plenty of them. And I was really more impressed when I found out that the electrics in this MG are a Bosch design. And in fact, I ended up having some conversations with the whole charge point, and there were some issues which were preventing me from going for the car. And the chap in the design engineer of the charge point, he used the phrase, "We will have that fixed within 2 weeks." And you know, you got the impression that Europe was designing this. You know, Europe was fixing the problem. You might go and connect to a Chinese computer server to update the software or whatever, but the design was European, and this guy was involved. And sure enough, the note came out from MG 2 or 3 weeks later saying, "We've fixed this problem. Please take your car into the garage and get the thing updated," you know. I didn't have the car at the time, but the conversation I had with the Zappi manufacturer was really impressive. He knew what the problem was, and he said, it's not just your car, it's this car, that car, that car, they've all got the same problem. We will get it fixed. Yeah.
It's an interesting question as well. As to, I'm not aware of any garages that can repair the batteries, but I know we looked at camper vans a while ago, not specific electric, but we went down to one in Linlithgow, a camper van company, and the guy there he's specifically importing like the Nissan, I can't remember the type of vehicles, but they're the sort of mid-size, fairly small camper vans, but he's importing the vans from Japan, and they're all electric, and they have been for many years, and he has developed the technology for actually checking the cells of the battery and is able to repair specific units. So it says that the technology is available, it is possible to do it, but I don't know of any, if specific car garages, are doing that yet. But he certainly was able to do that, so that he knew that the camper vans he was putting out were 100% good batteries, which is, interesting to hear.
Yeah, the battery management system measures the voltage on each cell, and it monitors that to make sure that the battery charge goes in uniformly across the battery. I know, well, all the manufacturers, the battery, the cells within the battery are all identical.
Okay.
And if there are any faulty ones, they can take them out and replace them one at a time. It's not a change in the whole battery, it's replacing the cells which are going faulty. And even the cells that are going faulty, they may be only 80% efficient instead of 100%, and they are then used in these home charge storage units or whatever, because they still have a life.
Yeah.
I've been asked questions about battery recycling. Volkswagen and I know Tesla with Panasonic are commissioning recycling facilities, and Volkswagen are claiming that they'll be able to recycle in excess of 95% of the battery material, because at the moment batteries are made from scarce material, so they've got to. But technology is changing, and maybe in 5 years' time, even now there are batteries being designed which don't use the materials they're using now, but they're going to be another 10 years before they're coming into mass production. Well, they may be faster than that, but battery technology is going to change, and maybe in 5 years' time I'll be able to change the battery in my car to something different. But it's going to mean changing of a lot of other stuff as well. The battery management system would have to be changed, maybe, and other bits and pieces. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ian. I'm a little bit mindful of the time. Any other questions? Have I lost you again?
No.
Keep getting this, your internet connection is unstable message. It's driving me mad.
That one from Anne and Anthony.
No, we were just talking amongst ourselves, saying that we're very grateful for all the information.
Yeah, we just wanted to say thank you for a very interesting presentation.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I mean, I'm happy to take consultations. I don't charge. And I'm not on commission from anybody, by the way. But I'm not. I haven't looked at Mercedes. I haven't looked at. I've looked at Volkswagens, but I think they're still too expensive for what they are. But anyway, I'm not an expert. I've got experience from owning a car. And I'm happy to share it.
I just wonder on the last point you were covering about, checking out a second-hand car. For quite a while now, I think the RAC or the AA, these motoring organizations have had a thing that if you buy a second-hand car for a fee, I think they will come and check it over for you to see whether it's got four wheels and all that sort of thing, I don't know whether they do that for an electric car. You would think they would be moving into that, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know, Anthony, but I had that check done. I'm going back quite a few years now. That check done a few times, and I was a bit skeptical about the report because they didn't really do. I'm talking about internal combustion engines. They didn't check things like cylinder head pressures or some of the real the deep stuff. They looked at the car, they looked underneath it, and they said it's fair for its age or it's fair for its mileage. So what? I want to know whether the piston number 3 is passing or there's a bad oil leak underneath it or something. I don't want to know it's fair for its age. I can see that. I don't know is the answer to the question. I really don't know.
Yeah.
But it's worth investigating. Worth investigating.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very good.
The other thing I would say, just to reiterate what Ian said a long time ago, was that just go for a test drive, because I was really surprised just how enjoyable it was to drive an electric car. It's just incredible. And I've never liked automatics. I've always driven a manual. But the electric car, it's so quick off the mark, and it's just completely silent. You've just got that road noise, and it's just great fun to drive.
Yeah, that's an interesting comment. The MG has a pedestrian safety function. It makes a broom broom noise.
That's good.
Yeah, you can switch it off, but ours is running, and it's quite interesting. My wife was driving out the driveway this afternoon, and I was listening to it, and although the car was stopped, the engine noise decayed away. It was quite funny.
You can even get a whoopee cushion noise on the Tesla, can't you? Or is that not on your model?
Yeah, just coming back on Fraser's point about enjoyable to drive. The MG, and I think other cars have got the same. You can have an economy mode, a normal mode, or you can have a sport mode. And one or two chaps I know who've got Teslas describe the sports mode as the boys showing off mode. I wouldn't dare use it any other time, because the acceleration of a Tesla, well, even the MG, if I put my foot on the floor, it's incredible. The acceleration is really incredible, but the Tesla is something else. I mean, I've seen a Tesla go from the lights on sport mode, and it was just a blur of rubber.
You're nodding, Laura.
Yeah. But, there we go. So, you can
Definitely goes.
Yeah. Excellent. But you've not lost it yet.
Not admitting to anything.
Yeah. Excellent. Very good. That sounds great. Fantastic. That was a really interesting conversation, wasn't it? I'll stop the record.